Hey guys, welcome to Poolside Chat. Pastor Chris here. We were having a discussion the other day, a couple people and I, and this relates to what some have described recently as the age of rage. Over the last, oh good gosh, decade, 10 years, there have been people that I was going to say don't get their way, but something happens, or a decision is made, or an election is won, or an election is lost, or something, and instead of talking, they yell, they scream, they call horrible names, and they rage. So I think it's a very apt description called the age of rage. Actually, a couple of people have said, one was personally, actually two, and it said, well, real change can't happen, as it was said to me, unless you break a few eggs. And if innocent people are hurt, that is the price for freedom. That's the price you pay to see real change be affected. Or you have to make people feel pain, hurt them, if you want real change to happen. And it was asked to me, do I think that's true, or what do I think about this age of rage? It's not something I've addressed before. I've addressed individual incidents, but not in the context of having a period of time in the U.S. where this is, an argument. Do we need to hurt people? Do innocent people need to get hurt? Do you need to inflict pain on others in order to affect real change? My mind went back to the Velvet Revolution, 1989. And some of you may remember this, some of you are too young to know. I don't know if you have the history or not. But when the Iron Curtain fell across Europe after the end of World War II, the US and the West kept part of Europe, Western Europe. And there was an Iron Curtain that divided Eastern Europe from Western Europe. And Russia had influence over Eastern Europe. And they took these countries over and made them satellites of what was called the Soviet Union, of Russia. Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia. And they became communist nations under Soviet control, Russian control. So a couple of uprisings over time. 1956 was an uprising, 1960 in Hungary, 1968 in Czechoslovakia, and these were put down rather violently by Russians. So in 1989, November, I still remember, about 2 weeks, Czechoslovakia had a protest on student it was like a university peace day, International Students' Day is what it came to be. And they were blocked from protesting. Well, it caused all sorts of students and artists and musicians to start large protests throughout Czechoslovakia. And they were allowed to protest, they made their voices heard. And the single rule communist government fell through these protests. There's a famous picture in the Velvet Revolution of a girl putting a flower into the barrel of a Russian soldier's weapon as he's standing there watching this protest. And I did learn researching this. I always knew it was the Velvet Revolution. It was always called the Gentle Revolution, because no shots were fired, no people were hurt. Peaceful protest brought down Russia. There was also, when they went to parliamentary parliamentary political system, 2 years after the Velvet Revolution, they had what was called the Velvet Divorce. It was called the Dash War, because it was going to be the country of Czechoslovakia. It was going to be the Czech Republic and Slovakian Republic. Was it a federation? So there was an argument, parliamentary argument, of what do we call this country? And 2 years later, a few years later, 93, they separated to what they are now, the two separate countries, the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Again, this Dash War was within Parliament, these words. And that's where my mind went when I look at the age of rage and hurting others and inflicting pain and innocent people getting hurt. And I thought that's the best example of a nonviolent protest leading to permanent change. There was also Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, who sat in the back of the bus and started the civil rights movement. There were the Woolworth lunch counter protests where black students would go and sit. Now these people were attacked by whites, but they didn't respond with violence. Martin Luther King led to a nonviolent protest and it brought about civil rights, the civil rights era. I think of the women's suffrage movement, right to vote. They protested. So these were non-violent demonstrations. Now some did lead to violence. Heaven knows the women, Susan B. Anthony, they had violence against them, but they were not violent. Civil rights, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., they were attacked, but they led it with non-violence. So do I think that you need violence to effect permanent change? I do not. I base this in history. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so against erasing history or changing history. History is history. And when we forget history, there's a saying, when you forget history, you're bound to repeat it. But you also, I think it does everyone a disservice that you don't learn about whose shoulders we stand on to where we are today. So I think there is an age of rage. I think that's obvious. And for my friends, I hope you're listening, but I didn't give you an answer before that, but that's what my answer is. I do not think you need violence to effect permanent change. I do think violence will lead to temporary change out of fear and intimidation. Again, Czechoslovakia. But I do not think it leads to permanent change. I think permanent change comes through peaceful protest, which is not something we see today, where you try to goad and bait others into attacking you, where you blow horns in people's ear and yell at them and scream in their face. That's just rage. That's why, hence rage of rage, what some people call this, and I tend to agree. And there is a verse, a passage, which I want to read to you because I think it's important. This comes out of Romans chapter 12, Paul's letter to the Romans. This section is called Love in Action. Now, it's written for Christians, but the lesson is applicable to all of us. Starting in verse, Let's do verse 14. It says, "Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position, and do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone." This is a key verse, verse 18. "If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. If your enemy, on the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you'll heap burning coals on his head. You want to fight? Think of the Velvet Revolution. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So guys, check it out. Czechoslovakia, 1989, November. The Velvet Revolution or the Gentle Revolution. If you think you need violence to make change, look to history and let's repeat what actually led to permanent change. Great conversation, observation, and thanks for sharing this. I'm Pastor Chris. Keep the questions coming. Facebook, YouTube, Rumble at FL Compass Church, and now on Instagram at FL Compass Church. Be blessed. Have a great week, and we'll see you Saturday.